Hello. Hey, biology students, Crowder. Man, that seemed like a low energy intro. Man, that isn't like me. But I was thinking that light. I just adjusted that light and it's still swinging. And I was just, I guess, thinking about it. But anyway, hey, welcome back. Hey, thank you for being here. Thanksgiving break week. Man, hey, don't look at the time and date and put anything like that together. It's been a crazy week. I was going to make this video on Tuesday, and we woke up to a power outage. I mean, no electricity. We didn't well, I shouldn't say not like it went an hour or so, but just a few minutes, and I realized, wait a minute, the because we don't ever have any lights on, and it was daytime. Slept in almost till 7:30. But anyway, no electricity. Didn't come on until 2:30. So whatever happened, it's almost like that Nevada one we had, or the one in Nevada a few weeks back. But yeah, a long time. And so that kind of killed that day. And of course, then yesterday we had our first of our four Thanksgivings this week, and ironically on actual Thanksgiving Day, because of just the way the family structure is anymore. It's just empty house here, and they've all got families and in-laws and stuff. So they're all doing different things with that today, and then we'll get back together and we'll have number 2, 3, and 4 Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So it'll be actually Sunday's just kind of all of us, me, my two, and their families getting together one more time and just hanging out. So that'll certainly be by that time, the food will certainly be non-Thanksgiving. Like I'll probably just smoke something Saturday and take that. Now the question is what? Wouldn't mind having me some chorizo sausages. Make a little hoagie out of that. That's some pretty good stuff we make around here. But anyway, Thanksgiving week, man. I hope you're enjoying your time off, and hope everything's going well. And you're just able to relax. One more full week after that, and then finals. So just a reminder, this is chapter 33, our last chapter. Bittersweet to get over with, but actually, when I was prepping for it earlier today, I was thinking, man, I want to make this one short and sweet, get out. But we do got to cover material to make sure you're ready for your test. Which a reminder, if you're watching this, it will be online. I've got to pull that off somehow, and yeah, it'll just come up as an assignment, and you'll just go through, select the answers, and it will be auto graded because I'll mark what the right answers are, and I'm not sure, it may even give you multiple attempts. So if you take it and you don't like the score, see if it lets you do it again. Maybe that's the case. But you certainly want to use these notes that you're about to take, and you want to have that textbook right there with you too, and I guess whatever other resources a person can use with the with the internet. I mean, not like I'm there to say, hey, don't do that. So hopefully you're having a great week, and just the relaxing, just the everything. Not this class, but in my A&P class, we had somebody get married during this week. Last Tuesday, went out to Tennessee, and just had a nice, hopefully a nice time. But anyway, hopefully that went well for them. But anyway, that's a whole different class. So the material that we're going to cover today is kind of a big old collection. Some of it's going to seem like it's a medical situation, a little A&P involved, a little cell work from the past. We'll bring up some words from the past that we've talked about, and but for the most part, just looking at the various structures and functions of animal bodies, just kind of like what we do with plants, except now it's us. And what you can see on the screen here is a lovely collection of various things. And some of them are on purpose. I mean, I could have used anything, but so we'll talk about this. My wife grew up on a horse farm. Let me get my pen here. And it's Thanksgiving. What's a good Thanksgiving color? Purple doesn't seem like it's a Thanksgiving color, but maybe it is, and I just don't know it. Boy, nothing jumping out at me. I wanted to think turkey, then I got to thinking about that. Yeah, we got a turkey in the smoker out there that we're going to enjoy big time tonight, and sandwiches for a few days, and smoking that, a little mesquite wood, little rub on that thing, and oh man, it's going to be amazing. Hopefully I got to have it done by 5 o'clock, and she gets pretty cranky if the food ain't ready at a particular time like that. So I don't know. Let's just go with, let's just go with this orange here. So my wife grew up on a horse farm, and she grew up with dachshunds. So she's well, we're all strange in our own special ways, but she's in that situation. So her pets were either 9 pounds or 900 pounds. That's quite a range there. And she says, luckily, all throughout the years, no dachshund ever got stopped or kicked. Of course, they were up closer to the house. They weren't down by the horse barns and stuff. But yeah, she grew up, and so I've kind of. We were dog people growing up, but we always had just shelter things that we'd have around the house, and anywhere from, we had a German Shepherd one time, or at least a part German Shepherd. We had a couple collies, a couple terriers every once in a while. So we just didn't really have a type. We just always had one around. But since then, I've grown up. Most of my adult life been around dachshunds quite a bit, and these aren't our two. I shouldn't say her two current ones, but they're pictures of them. This is Bean down here, is a coffee bean dachshund, and this is Penny, who is a wired-haired mix, and these are pretty good pictures of them. But anyway, I got them here to kind of break down some of the things that we're going to talk about. And of course, with a silhouette of a person here, because one of the things we're going to talk about is directional words that reference an AMP type setting. Let me get all this stuff off of here. And yeah, that wasn't notes. Don't write that down. Those aren't going to be test questions right there, in case you were wondering that. But when we think about, close this out here, because we're going to start by doing a little typing here. Get my box up here. But when we think about animal, get my proper heading here, animal, body, what do we got here? Yeah, form and function. Form and function. The first thing we want to think about is symmetry. Yeah, that's A-R-Y, isn't it? No. I always want to put an A there, but just symmetry. Okay, so we want to think symmetry. And from that, there are two types. There's radio, which we're just briefly going to mention just because there's two types. And there's radio, which is a very small percentage, and then there's bilateral, which is everybody else, you and me included. So if I get the pen back out here, this will be radio. Oh, I got it on an eraser. Don't want to erase all that. This will be radio, and then we'll use the penny picture here to showcase bilateral. Radio simply means that no matter what way I cut this, I didn't mean to do that. Let's try this again. No matter what way I cut this, the two halves are gonna be exactly the same. So, however, kind of like a pizza, okay? As long as you're making 90-degree cuts, each half is going to be exactly the same, and it's typically because the whole thing, if you can imagine a core center and a tube going down, it's based on being around that core and then builds out from there in an even structure. And of course, as you know, animals, we don't do that. We have bilateral. In other words, if I would draw a line here, Penny's left half, as I'm looking at it, and right half, it's actually, if I flipped it around, I was looking at Penny, it'd be the opposite side. I was looking at it. The two halves are going to be equal. There's going to be a leg on each side, the rib cage on each side, an eye on each side, an ear on each side, and the head and the rest of the torso and the back are all going to kind of be exactly. That's bilateral. Bilateral. So those are two types of symmetry. And now if I scoot this up here, let's don't get rid of Penny. There we go. Things we're going to talk about now is, let's go back to our text box here, move this over, and in an A&P class we'd simply call these, or I simply refer to them as directional words, and these are words that we use all the time when we're looking at things, anterior, posterior, dorsal, ventral, that kind of stuff, as a reference point to where things are, and especially where they are in comparative to other things. So if you ever want to impress a doctor or a nurse, you just take these words in with you to the next doctor's appointment, if it's you or somebody else, and when they say something, say, well, is that anterior or posterior, is that dorsal, ventral, that kind of stuff, and they'll be like, whoa. No, probably not, because you'll probably use it wrong, but anyway, they'll just they'll giggle at that. But anyway, so some of the words, and I'm just going to put them in their groups: anterior, posterior. These refer to essentially on a human. Now the tricky thing about these, and we'll showcase these when we start drawing planes, is that they refer to anterior and posterior, refer to both ends of the organism. The anterior end, and I'll put an A, and it refers to, anterior refers to the head end, and that one's always easy. Okay, but the definition for posterior is it refers to the tail end. Well, for a human, okay, that's going to be the feet. But if you look at Bean here, this dachshund, that's going to be the actual tail. So one of the tricky enough these directional words is you got to understand what you're looking at. For a human, it's simply head and feet. Okay, but you can see that for a dachshund or for an animal, it'd be the same thing on this horse. It'd be A and then P back here. Okay, and so it wouldn't refer to the legs. So if you're looking at an upright organism, like maybe you were looking at if it wasn't a human, maybe a gorilla, okay, or a chimpanzee, something that's more upright. Okay, and so now you're thinking, okay, so it must do with height. No, that's where the trickiness gets you, and just the routine of using them. Because like a giraffe would be just like the animals here, because the body is long ways. It would be A and P, and the head and feet wouldn't be referenced by anterior or posterior. So part of in an A&P class, the trickiness of using these words is you got to understand the direction that your specimen, its body structure is. Okay, so close this out. Going back up here to our box and edit. And of course our next two, dorsal, ventral. Okay, and these refer to spine and belly. So maybe I should put that. Maybe I'll go up here and put head and tail, and then here, wait, let me put them in order. So it'd be belly. No, it wouldn't. No, I had it right. and I'm putting these in the exact order. It's like anterior refers to the head, posterior refers to the tail, dorsal refers to the spine, ventral the belly, because dorsal is top. Okay, so if I'm looking at this human here, then yeah, dorsal would be, and let me just get my pen here. So I'm going to put a D, but dorsal would be behind it. Okay, and this would be ventral. Okay, but for being down here, this is going to be dorsal, and this would be ventral. So again, you can see it's just a different plane, and the same with the horse, dorsal, ventral. So again, just the specimen that you're looking at. So close this out, bring this back up, and our next two, where we're at, yeah. Medial, lateral, okay, and these refer to, is it towards the middle or is it away from? You guys probably can't hear this, but if you think it's crazy that I'm working on the Thanksgiving, I can hear a chainsaw out there. Somebody's running a chainsaw on cutting some firewood or something out there. So yeah, they're working harder than I am. All right, so oh, not sway. How about away from middle? I got sidetracked by the chainsaw. Scoot that over with a little bit there. All right, so if we draw a line, bring the pen back up here. If I draw a line from the middle out, okay, then it's got to be a real small M. That'd be the M, and that would be L. So, like obviously, your spine would be medial to the body, and your shoulder would be lateral. In other words, it's away from this. So it can also go, like your hip bone would be lateral, your pelvic girdle would be medial, that kind of stuff. Your chin would be medial, your ear would be lateral from the center. Okay, and so if I draw a line on being here, put that here, so medial, lateral. So obviously her legs would be lateral, the ribs would be medial. As far as the middle, actually, you know what? Let me back up there. Scratch that dot. I should not have drawn my line that direction. The line should go this direction. Hopefully you caught that. Yeah. Because her spine runs this way. So medial would be in here, and then lateral would be out here. So away from middle. Yep. I stayed along that middle line. That's why that was wrong or incorrect. Actually, I should have known it was incorrect because I drew it the same direction as the person, and they're a different body direction here. All right. So one more set here, in case you're just enjoying yourself. Distal. Proximal. Now these are tricky because there's got to be a third point, and I'll explain that. But again, it's okay, just like the medial or lateral. So for example, if let's say her. So I'm going to draw a dot to represent the third point, and this will make more sense. So if I say Bean's shoulder blade, okay, now, and so now we're going to talk about this little leg here, as my wife would say, this cute little leg here. Okay, this point, okay, we're going to put a P, proximal, and then the toes or the nails would be distal, okay, distant, okay, they're further away. So you've got the pointage you're referring to, so say like my shoulder, okay, my elbow would be proximal or close, and then my fingers would be distal, further away from that than the elbow is. So it's a little 3-point reference that describes the body plans. All right, so those are that, and now an extension of that are the planes. So we'll close this, get me a text box up here again. Actually, let's just use the same one, and we'll just go down a little bit. Okay, plane, and we're not talking about airplanes here, even though I love talking planes and the rockets, especially rockets. I'm a big NASA fan. You guys probably don't know that, but yeah, I'm a huge NASA fan. If you ever want to talk NASA and Starlink and rockets and all the things that are going on right now, the ISS, the International Space Station, you think I can talk bio stuff forever and a day? I can talk that stuff a long time. Love that stuff. But we're looking at planes, sagittal. Okay, so this separates, and I'm just going to put separates, period, right and left. Okay, so if I look at Bean here, this line here that I drew, okay, that's a sagittal line. Okay, a sagittal line because it separates the right in half. And so when you draw these planes, again, they can be tricky because you got to know which organism you're working with. Okay, which organism you're working with. Now, for us, the line would be the same. Okay, I didn't draw that very well, but pretend I drew it right down the middle. Again, this is a sagittal line because it's separating the right and left half. And of course, the difference is it's be a much longer one because we're separating the right and left half. But on Penny up here, it'd be a shorter one, but we're still separating the right and left half. Okay, so that one's kind of the same. I mean, if you're looking at them straight on. Now the next two is where it really gets again super tricky. But you just gotta pay attention to what you are trying to separate. Okay, for a frontal, okay, in a frontal, you'd think, well, that's what we just did. No, unfortunately, it separates dorsal and ventral. Okay, so for a frontal plane, for us, oh, didn't mean to do that. Get my pen up here. It would separate the front and back. In other words, I would draw it down, and it would cut us, like through the head and down our body, and then the ventral and the dorsal would separate. In other words, we would just cut. I'm going to turn sideways here so you can see me. We're just going to cut down through the body, separating basically what would be our belly and our spine, separating those two. So for us, it's an upright plane. But if I take Bean here and I separate dorsal and ventral, now my line is going through here, separating her dorsal and her ventral. So again, it's got to be, what is it trying to separate, And what's the structure of my organism? Same thing with the horse. It would be right through there. Okay, and then so for, let me close this. And then for our last plane, we got a transverse. Okay, so we've separated left and right. We've separated basically for us front and back. Okay, or in Bean's case, top or bottom. Okay, so now we're trying to separate anterior, posterior. Okay, so for us, if this is our anterior, this is our posterior, that's a pretty simple cut, because it's simply right through here, top, bottom. Okay, but if you look at where Bean's anterior and posterior are, her line is going to come down here. And so we end up and so here you can see ours. We're across the middle, down the middle, and then separating the front from the back. And if you think about Bean, if she had a line, we're going to put it, here, that was cutting, the left and right. Yeah. So if I did this same thing with Penny up here, because you can see her length, there'd be a line going through here. Okay, that would be the sagittal, and then she would have, her other line would be back here, anterior, posterior. So not clean cut is but again, that's what they're trying to separate. So really all you gotta think about is, all right, what are they trying to separate, and then draw your line that separates those two parts. So tricky, but it just takes mental work. And of course, A&P students, once they begin the introduction to work, they work with it the rest of their lives. So eventually, at some point in time, it just becomes learned by habit. And but unfortunately, you guys just get to memorize it. All right, so that is a look at the directional words. So now we're going to close this out. And let's go, let's see, let me look at how much I've got here. 1, 2, yeah, I just got 2 here. So I'm going to go over here on the other side of this elephant here and this mouse. And we'll put that right there. We won't cover up Penny's face there. Because now we're going to be talking about metabolism. So get me a text box here. I was going to say, wait a minute, I'm not spelling this right. And now I'm still not spelling it right. Yeah. B-O-L. Did I put an I in there? Yeah, I did. Metabolism. No, that should be an A there. Yeah, tab. There we go. Finally, take 3. Spelling the word, take 3. Metabolism. All right, so little outline format. So metabolism simply anabolic reactions. And that's a big sentence, but there are some things that we can use to help understand it. So like, for example, when I say energy from nutrition, what am I talking about there? Yeah, cellular respiration. We're talking about cellular respiration right there. So that's an old friend of ours. And then anabolic reactions. We definitely know that word. Okay, that was part of the building. Building molecules. So cellular respiration, things are broken apart, and that allows the cells in the body to make molecules. And of course, we're talking glycogen, we're talking the proteins, we're talking the carbohydrates, we're talking the lipids, we're talking nucleic acids, proteins, all that stuff. So hey, all that things are things that we refer to and spend a lot of time talking about, learning about, and comprehending. Couldn't think of another word there. Let's see. No, I don't want that. I want this. We want to edit this, so we'll go down here. Little strong teacher format or work right there. Because now, bringing back another old friend, diffusion. No, that's definitely not right. Yeah. To you. There we go. No, that still don't look right. Oh, you are. No, it is. All right, resources. All right, so another old friend, diffusion. Okay, we've got to get resources into the cell. So oxygen, water, all that stuff. And whether it's passive, okay, whether it's active. Oh, excuse me. I brought that on. But anyway, whether it's passive, just having a little alert there. I didn't quite see it, but I did see a reference to NASA there, so something must be going on out there. All right, so diffusion, got to get those resources inside there, and so again, just part of the work that the cell's got to do to get things in, but just a reminder of that. And that whole idea of limited by diffusion. So the size of a cell, okay, it can only get so large. Because if you think about a cell, let me close this out, and I bet that's a reference to, I'm just going to pull it up so it'll go away, well, the color anyway. Check that note later there. All right, so let me think here. Oh, yeah, if you think about a cell, get my pen here. Okay, so if I think about, and maybe a plant cell, it's easier for this diagram for a square. So if you think about a cell, this isn't the shape of a cell, not two-dimensional. No, they're three-dimensional. And I never was very good at doing this stuff growing up, so this is going to be horrible. I can just tell you right now. Make that line longer, and then this is the part that always, do I need another line? I know I can do this back one here, because I can do that, but how do I get, is it this right there? That draws the box there. Anyway, something like that. But anyway, three-dimensional. So if I increase the length, okay, then I exponentially increase the volume. Okay, if I increase the height, I exponentially increase the volume. And diffusion can only work so fast. So, for example, here in the small town I live in, it's roughly 1.5 miles wide, maybe. So. But if you think about this, if the only way, let me just draw this. So if this is the town I live in, and I'm approximately right over here, and the grocery store is right here. Now, if the only way that people could get food is if somebody in the grocery store picked it up and walked it to your house, okay, that's going to be our metaphor for diffusion. So, we call them up and say, hey, we need some bread and butter. So they go, okay. So they get the bread and butter, and then they walk over to our house and give it to us. Okay, then he goes back, and then maybe this person over here says, hey, I need some hot dogs. So he picks up the hot dogs, or she, and walks it over there. And then this person over here says, hey, we feel like snacking. So go into that freezer and get us some mozzarella cheese sticks, get us some jalapeno poppers, and maybe one of those DiGiorno pizzas. And the guy says, or the person says, all right. And then he walks it over there. Okay, so in this setting, this size, all that can be done in a decent amount of time. Okay, no one starves to death in this system. Okay, with it at this size. But now if I go here, and then relative keep us all kind of the same distance, now you can see that by the time this guy walks over to here and then back and then maybe down to here, the day may be over and he didn't have a chance to get to this person. So the next day, if he takes that over to here, then he brings us our stuff. Now this person doesn't get any resources. So cell size is limited by how fast diffusion can work. You can only work so fast. So if you increase the area, okay, you're going to make it impossible for the cell to get everything it needs to, get stuff where it needs to get to. So when we say that, close this out, we drew all that just to make this next point here, is that larger organisms have more cells. So when people look at, or when we ask questions about something the size of a mouse or something the size of an elephant, their cell size are the exact same size. The difference is elephants have a lot more cells. And that's what we mean by that right there. So their cell size is exactly the same whether you're a mouse or an elephant. Same size. Can't get any bigger. Okay, or it's not going to work properly, it's just going to die. So an elephant then has a lot more cells. Okay, and that's what we mean by that. So going back up here to our notes here, our next thing that we're going to reference is the basal, not basing. And this will be referred to in the future as the BMR. It's the rate of energy used in a resting organism. I'm better need to ask an organism. So, for example, in your resting state, how much energy do you use? That's your basal metabolic rate, or your BMR. Okay, and then once you start moving around and active, okay, then that just becomes the metabolic rate. But basal is a reference to at rest. Okay, now a male, $1,600 to $1,800. Oh, I lost my 6 there somewhere. And in female, it's 13 to 15, yeah. So you can just see, just as our bodies are structured, males tend to burn a little bit more energy than the females in just a resting state. But when we think about being active, now we want to think about, in our reference to cells, if we think BMR, than large organisms. And this should make sense if these cells are the same size and they're doing the same thing, okay, giving out the same amount of heat. Well, with this mouse having such a small surface area, the heat's going to get lost, okay. But this elephant, okay, if it's got a lot more muscle, and so the muscle can absorb the heat, other organs can absorb the heat, the skin, especially the thicker hide, can absorb the heat. So mice and organisms of that size lose a lot more heat, and therefore their BMRs are much higher. Okay, on the flip side, active Okay, so if you think about this, when you compare the two variables, so now a small active organism is going to have a tremendously larger BMR than a large non-active. And you may say, all right, who's a large non-active? Well, for one, elephants. I mean, even though they do move around, okay, for the most part, they are pretty stationary, and when they do move around, it's a pretty slow, methodical pace. But if you think about a mouse, okay, one of the reasons why a mouse has to keep moving is, one, finding resources. If it's going to burn off a bunch of energy all the time, then it's got to constantly be eating. But it's also got to be wary of where predators are, so it's got to be on constant alert for that situation. So that BMR, pretty good. Didn't mean to do that. Put that back where it was, hopefully. And let's try this again. So if we look at this scale here, this is mass, okay, as far as weight, and then this is a reference to the BMR. And this number scale is not what we were looking at, so it's not great for that, but it is a comparative. So if you got a shrew here, okay, not much weight, but very high BMR. Okay, a shrew, if you know, it's similar to a mouse or a mole, what we would call a mole around here. But then you got shrew, mouse, and then you get into this little bit of the squirrels. Then you get a rat, and so. But as you get larger, as your organism gets larger, here's a mouse here, rabbit, cat, and dog. Then your BMR really goes down. And you think about cats and dogs. I mean, the dogs around here, I mean, they can take a Saturday. Their Saturday naps can last a long time. They get the three of them up on the couch, and I'm watching me some football. Man, they can be out for, seems like, hours. But anyway, until the mailman shows up, nothing's funnier than having two little dachshunds, which they can hear the vehicle, but they can't see out the window. When we're on their couch, they can look out there and see, but they don't stay on the couch. No, they get over by that window and they are barkity bark, 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 bark. Like if that mailman comes in here, oh, we got this. Carnage galore. When in essence they would run and hide behind her leg. That's typically what they do. But yeah, you would think they're going to tear it up. So, you know, there can be active moments for a larger organism, but for the most part, there's a lot of non-movement time as well. All right, so enough of, I shouldn't say enough, like we muddled through that, but that is the that aspect of it. So now we're going to spend the rest of our time talking about the 4 types. Let me flip over here. The 4 types of tissue, and we're going to deal with epithelia. We're going to deal with connective tissue, muscle tissue, and then a little bit of neurons, and then we're going to be done. So we're going to get through this, although we are pushing 45 minutes. So we're going to be 75 minutes easy here. But we'll get through this. Let me think here. No, I'm in good shape because my next smoker check is 1:30. So yeah, I did a smoker check. In other words, I restocked the wood chips and the water, and took a temperature reading on the turkey. So I'll get done with this, and it'll be time to do it again. Yay! All right, so 4 types. Let me get my box up here. Four types of tissue. So we're going epithelia, what do I got? THM. Epithelia, I'm going to put that there and then we'll come back to it. Connective. Put one of those there, and then we got muscle. Put that there and we'll come back to it. And neuron. Put that there and we'll come back to it. So epithelia, the first reference point, that's skin. Okay, so that's epithelia tissue, but it's much more than that. It lines cavities, open spaces. And you may be thinking, isn't that what a cavity is? Yeah, but a cavity is inside of something. Open space may be referred to like between your heart and your lungs. Okay, there's open spaces, and I mean not technically they're touching, but there's space in there, and connective tissue would not only line that, but it would line inside the lungs as well. And let's see, where am I at? Oh, up here, all the way up here, yeah. And surfaces, which would come, is where your skin comes in. But it can also refer to the surface of like the gallbladder, pancreas. Okay, those surfaces of those as well. Oh man, that's 3. That's bad. All right, so connective tissue. Spoiler alert, connects things. So you can imagine that in the meeting that some scientists had, that once they discovered this tissue, it got down to they're looking at their agenda for their meeting. They're like, okay, new business, old business. Oh, naming tissue that we just discovered. All right, so what does it do? It connects things together. Oh, okay. Well, let's call it connective tissue then. Okay, let's go to lunch. Yeah, obviously named there. Connective tissue connects tissues together. What else do I got down here? Provide support. And one more, I think. Nope, that's it. So scratch that last comma there. Muscle. This is all about movement. movement and work. Movement and work, getting things done there. And of course neurons, oh I didn't mean that. Neurons, that's sending. And receiving. Did I do my I before E? No, I think that is wrong. I think this is one of those words that, yeah, it's gotta be like that. Signals. Okay, so we'll close that one out, get us a new one here. And here we will talk about epithelial tissue. The epithelial tissue, again, we're talking skin, we're talking surfaces of things. There are 4 types of cells that make up our first one is squamous, and I'm going to put that, come back to it. Cuboidal, and columnar, and transitional. And transitional, they may be the most important of all those. What you learn, where they are, what they do, but they're pretty important. When it's time for them to be important, they are pretty important. So we'll go back up to squamous here. Squamous are round. What else do I got there? Flat shape. And you'll find these in the lungs. Lungs, skin, okay, and mouth. Cuboidal, as you might imagine. I'm going to put square-ish, not perfectly, but close. And you'll find these in glands. And columnar are tall, rectangle-ish. No, not that one. This one, and you'll find them in the digestive tracts. So you got those long tubes, digestive, so mouth, esophagus, stomach, intestines, and out. Those be columnar, because they can stretch, okay, and snap back, stretch and snap back, like a slinky. And when you're digesting food or you're breathing in, you got to stretch and recoil, stretch and recoil. Alright, so transitional cells are kind of odd why they went that way with their name, but they're essentially squamish-like, and they stretch out into columnar-like. So they call them transition because they look like 2 different of them whenever they're working, but they're just small. Small circles, but they can stretch out into long transition, and part of that urinary bladder. So that's why they're so important. They're able to stretch and hold until you can get to a proper place to remove, for lack of a better term, and try to avoid any unnecessary images or colorful language on that. But so if you're somebody who struggles with being able to hold properly all the time, or you're like, it's oh man, I got to get there now, When someone said, "Boy, you got a small bladder," I say, "No, I just my transitional cells don't work like they need to," and they'll be like, "Oh, okay, sure." Transitional cells. Okay, so that's epithelia. Oh no, I got to say one more. Well, I got to do some drawings too. Okay, so I'm going to go in here. So when we say simple, so if I were to say like this gland or this organ or this tissue is simple squamous, okay, that tells you a bunch about it. Simple means one layer. Okay, and then so stratified. Okay, more than one. More than one layer. So if I close this out and get my pen up here, so if I kind of draw, and when you draw a squamous, it kind of like it looks like maybe a fried egg a little bit, but flat, kind of roundish. Okay, and then cuboidal, more square shaped. So this is squamous. This is the cuboidal. And of course, columnar, more like that. And then transitional, oh, excuse me. And then of course stretches out to to more like this when needed, when that bladder's got to stretch out there. But if this is squamous, cuboidal, or columnar, and transitional, then if I draw me a layer, okay, so this would be simple, squamous, and I'm just going to put SQ there, SQU, to save time. That would be simple squamous cells, but one row of them. Now, if I were to come in here and do this, and actually for these I need to do it this way for time. Whoa, man. Video's going too long, I guess. So if these are cuboidal, okay, cuboidal here, this would be stratified because there's more than one layer. So that's a reference to those two words. All right, so connective tissue, muscle tissue, neurons. Let's get this done and get out of here. I'm obviously... Oh, pin's still up. All right, let's get this over. There's our nervous tissue. That's our end, so that tells you we're getting close. Connective tissue. Give me a box here. Connective tissue. All right, it is all right, so connective tissue. I got my C there. No. Why am I having trouble with that? Oh, it goes down. Oh, I left on my U. There we go. Connective tissue. So we got our heart and we got our lungs. That tissue in between, that's connective tissue. It's just going to be a mix of all the resources, okay, that those tissues might need. Lots of blood vessels, okay, lots of fatty tissue, lots of different types of cells. The immune system would be heavy, and lymphatic system, all that stuff. Now, so for our next note down here, the structure for the ground tissue. Now let me just go on, because that doesn't make a lot of sense. You know what ground tissue is. All right, so the ground tissue, if you think back to the plants, remember it had that word ground in there. The ground was that middle section. You had your epidermis on the outside, and you had your vascular tissue in the extreme middle, and the ground was everything in between, providing that structure and support. It's the same thing here, except now we're talking about flat surfaces. So you're going to have your top layer, you're going to have your bottom layer, your basement membrane, and everything in between there is the ground tissue. And it's just going to be support. It's going to be all the things that the cell needs are going to reside in there and just be moving around. And so that's the ground tissue. For the connective tissue, and then one more here. And I'm just going to put CT, connective tissue. Gives the body structure to the tissue. So the connective tissue is just simply that foundation, that support. I mean, if you think about a house, somebody builds a house, you're going to have all that parts of the house going to be specialized. If you think about that as the body, then each of those parts of the house, rooms, everything within it could be a metaphorical point to something in the body. But that foundation underneath there, that concrete, that's your connective tissue, connecting it to the house, to the ground. In other words, keeping it grounded or keeping it secure as much as possible. Okay, that takes us to our second to last topic. Okay, this is muscle tissue. And we've got 3 types. I don't know if you knew that or not, but if you did know that, that's awesome by you. But the one that we're most familiar with, skeletal tissue. And this is tissue tissue that's connected to bones. In other words, so this is what your skeletal tissue and your skeletal muscles are going to be working in tandem. In other words, so if you got a muscle and you've got a bone, the things that connect those two. Okay, no, I'm going down the wrong path. Okay, the muscle, we're talking about actual muscles. The muscle tissue connected to bones, that's skeletal muscle. Okay, some other key things. That is voluntary. In other words, it has to be brain directed in order for it to happen. So when you walk around, when you move your arm, anything that is a motion off a skeletal muscle, the brain has to say first, all right, here's what we're going to do. Here's the game plan. And you carry it out. The second type, or the opposite type, if you want to think about that, is, think of it that way, smooth muscle. Okay, this is involuntary. Okay, so if you think about things that your brain doesn't have to control, like your heart beating, okay, your lungs working, your brain working. Your brain didn't have to tell your brain to work. Your kidney working. Okay, your gallbladder doing its stuff. Cell division. None of that stuff does your brain have to say, all right, cells, we're going to divide today. Here's the schedule. 3 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 7 o'clock. No. All that stuff happens on its own. And these are things that I talk about all the time. But that's the amazing part of our body system. And so these are typically organs, glands, etc., etc., etc. And our last type, okay, is kind of a combination of those two. It's involuntary because you don't have to control it, but it does have to be a muscle that has great endurance and can last a long, 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 long time. So it is, I was leaving off a word. Gyrations, and then so smooth would be non-gyrated, and then our last one, cardiac, okay, so we're talking the heart here. Involuntary, you certainly don't want to have to think about your heart beating, but styrations. And that's because styrations, what styrations are, is those are overlapping bands. And when it's work time, they stretch and come back, stretch and come back, stretch and come back. Well, your kidney doesn't need to do that. It just needs to hold together and let all the cells do their work. Same thing with your gallbladder, pancreas. These things don't have to move around, and for the majority of your force, they can just sit there and do the work. But your skeletal muscles need to come back and forth, okay, compress, contract, and to get work done. Same thing with your heart. Okay, it's got that bump, 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 bump. It's got a beat, so it does have the gyrations. And just think, it's got to last. Well, it needs to last as long as it can, 100, 120 years, whatever. Beating, 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 beating. If you can imagine your leg muscles were used as much as your heart muscles, man, you'd never be sitting down. But that's the three types of muscle tissue. And for our last one here, I didn't mean to grab that. Our last one here, let me blow this up a little bit here. And you can get this image anywhere. You can get one fully labeled. There's one in your book as well. Okay, but nervous tissue is simply consists of neurons and neuroglia generate impulse. And the way this works, okay, these are, try that again, get my pen here. Okay, these are dendrites. Okay, and so what's going on here, you can see this is a previous neuron here. And so that message comes in from a previous neuron, attaches to the dendrites. Okay, then it travels down. This is the soma. Oh boy, there's the word dendrites right there. This is soma. Or cell body, and that's right there as well. Okay, then when it gets to this area, it triggers the neuron to fire and sends the signal down the axon. Okay, that's the axon there, and it travels down the axon out to their axon terminals, and this stuff here is the same as this thing up here, and that's the dendrites for the next neuron. So that's how it travels down that pathway from your brain to whatever needs to happen, and back up to the brain. Or like if you touch something warm, boom, signal. Back down. Hey, take your hand off that, stupid. And that's the idea of how a neuron works. You get the receptors, get some stimulus. Maybe it's just, okay, I feel very hot. Okay, so your brain gets that message. Hey, we feel hot. Okay, hypothalamus, here's what we got to do. We got to pump some of this into the system. We get some goosebumps. We got to start sweating. Get all that, as much heat out as possible. Well, hey, there it is. Okay, 9 minutes plus an hour. So yeah, right out there. So again, bittersweet. This is our last one. Man, I'm going to miss you guys. I mean, I love that class. The excitement of some of you guys and the interest level. I mean, truth be told, I won't say any names because embarrass them. But of all the Crowder students I've ever had, one of you guys is probably the most enlightened, or I've had the best conversations with. There was one other guy, but he'd always go heavy application, and he'd always take conversations way out there. But anyway, one of you guys I've really enjoyed the conversation that we've had, and you know who you are. It's been a great time. So hey, love you guys, appreciate you guys. Take care of this chapter 33. Remember your test online. Just pull all your stuff up and get going, get a good score on it. And with that, hey, we will say goodbye.